Welcome back to my channel. This channel specializes in writing about epic tales and myths from around the world. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help me out. Today, we will dive into a story titled Epic Mythology, the Battle of Light and Darkness, the Persian legend of creation and balance. Here is the detailed content. Chapter 1. The Silent Void Before Creation. Before time was born, before the first whisper of wind, there was only the void. It stretched endlessly in all directions, neither light nor shadow, neither being nor non-being. It was silence, absolute, a stillness that even eternity feared to name. From within that boundless emptiness, no star yet burned, no thought yet stirred. Yet even in the deepest silence, a question waited to be asked. From that question came a spark, infinitesimal, fragile, yet radiant with purpose. It was not born from chaos, but from awareness itself, a consciousness that began to dream of order, beauty, and truth. This spark grew brighter until the void could no longer contain it, and thus, from the infinite nothingness, Ahura Mazda came into being, the wise Lord, the source of light, the first thought of goodness. The birth of light, Ahura Mazda looked into the darkness surrounding him, and he perceived its depth and its hunger. Yet he felt no fear, for within him blazed the fire of creation. He opened his eyes, and from his gaze poured forth light unending, a radiance so pure it revealed the very shape of existence. From his breath came the wind of life, gentle and calm. From his words came the law of truth, the first principle of order. And from his will came the spark of time, setting the cosmos into motion. Light unfolded across the void like dawn upon a sleeping sea. From that moment, separation was born, the first duality, light and darkness, being and nothingness, truth and falsehood. Ahura Mazda saw that all creation would forever exist within this balance. He named the principle of harmony Asha, the divine order, the eternal law. In Asha, every star would find its path, every soul its purpose. The contemplation of the wise Lord, alone in the newborn light, Ahura Mazda meditated upon what he had made. He saw the beauty of form, yet also the potential for decay. He saw that where there was truth, falsehood could rise. Where there was creation, destruction would follow. From this contemplation, he understood that every act of goodness must invite its opposite. It was not despair that filled him, but compassion, for he knew what was to come. He gathered the light around himself and spoke the first sacred words. Let all who come after me know the path of truth, for in choosing light they shall overcome the darkness within. And as he spoke, his voice became vibration, resonating through the stillness. That sound, pure and eternal, became the first flame. It burned without fuel, without smoke, feeding only upon truth. Its name was Attar, the holy fire. From that fire, the heavens took form, a dome of brilliance above the void. Beneath it, the foundation of the world began to stir. But still, beyond the veil of light, the silence endured. The shadow stirs, for where light shines, shadow is born. Far beneath the glow of Ahura Mazda's realm, in the deep regions untouched by his gaze, the void began to tremble. The brilliance had awakened not only creation, it had awakened awareness of loss. In that unseen abyss, something ancient and opposite stirred. A consciousness without warmth, a thought without compassion. It watched the growing light with hatred that had no beginning. It whispered to itself in a tongue of hunger, "Why should there be light? and not darkness? Why should one will command the all? And from that blasphemous question, Ahriman was born. He was not created by Ahura Mazda, but by the reflection of his light upon the emptiness, the shadow cast by existence itself. Where Ahura Mazda embodied wisdom, Ahriman embodied ignorance. Where one created, the other corrupted. He was the lord of the abyss, and his first breath was the breath of destruction, the birth of opposition. Ahura Mazda felt the presence of his mirror, the darkness awakening beneath him. He did not rage nor fear, for he had foreseen it in his eternal thought. Thus, he said, the choice is born. For light to shine, darkness must exist, but in the end, truth shall outlast deceit. He raised his hand, and the flame of Attar flared higher, casting light even into the farthest corners of creation. Yet no light could pierce the heart of Ahriman completely. Ahriman recoiled, hissing, and from his retreat he began to shape his dominion, a kingdom of shadows, filled with cold, hunger, and decay. He gathered the essence of falsehood and gave it form. He called it Druge, the lie, the poison of all worlds. Thus began the first war of thought, not yet fought with weapons, but with will. Light sought to expand, darkness sought to devour. And in the silent space between them, the cosmos trembled. The birth of time to contain the struggle. Ahura Mazda created Zirvan, the spirit of infinite time. Zirvan was neither good nor evil, a river that flowed endlessly, measuring the rhythm of light and shadow. Time became the stage upon which creation and destruction would dance. Through time, beings would rise, choose, and fall. Through time, light would struggle against darkness until the final dawn. Ahura Mazda looked upon his work and spoke once more. In the beginning, there was only the void. Now there is the choice, and from choice shall come destiny. His words echoed across eternity, seeding the foundation of heaven, earth, and the hearts of all who would ever live. And so the world awaited its next breath, as light and darkness opened their eyes upon each other for the first time. Chapter 2: The Awakening of Darkness in the Deep. Lightless reaches beneath the newborn heavens. The void quivered as if disturbed by a forbidden dream. There, where no star had yet dared to shine, the essence of negation gathered a cold mist that devoured warmth, a hunger that fed on being itself. From this black silence emerged a form, terrible and vast, not born, but condensed from the refusal of existence. Thus rose Ahriman, the spirit of darkness, the echo of all that Ahura Mazda was not. He opened his eyes, and the cosmos shuddered. For in his gaze there was no reflection of light, only the abyss looking back. His breath spread like a plague across the void, filling the unseen corners of creation with the taste of decay. The first thought of hatred, when Ahriman first beheld the radiant heavens above, he felt no awe, only rage. The brilliance of Ahura Mazda pierced his being like a wound that would never heal. He cried out, "Who has dared to cast light upon my darkness? Who has filled the nothingness with form and fire?" The echo of his voice twisted through the emptiness, and from that sound, shadows thickened. They coiled, writhed, and began to take shape. These were the Devas, his first creations, spirits of corruption, born not from will, but from hatred. Their bodies were smoke, their minds venom. They bowed before their master, whispering, "You are the first lord of the deep. Command us, and we shall unmake the light." And Ahriman, seeing their devotion, was pleased. From his darkness, he forged 7 archments, each mirroring the 7 Amatia Spentus, the divine emanations of Ahura Mazda, where the wise Lord had created truth, purity, and devotion. Ahriman birthed deceit, filth, and rebellion. The balance was shattered. Duality became conflict. The poisoned dream, though he had power, Ahriman lacked wisdom. He gazed upward at the radiant world above, and envy grew in him like fire without flame. He whispered to himself, "If the light can create, so shall I. If he can breathe life, I shall breathe death. If he is eternal, then I shall be endless." Driven by that cursed ambition, Ahriman descended into the depths of the void, where he shaped his own reflection of creation, a realm twisted and dark, a mirror of ruin. He called it Duzak, the pit of corruption. There, rivers of shadow flowed, and mountains of ash rose beneath a bloodless sky. It was not life that stirred there, but existence without meaning, a parody of creation, a mockery of truth. The Devas built his fortress, the throne of night, and upon it Ahriman sat, brooding upon vengeance. He closed his eyes and saw the face of Ahura Mazda in his mind, not as light, but as the enemy who had stolen eternity from him. The prophecy of Zurvan, in the eternal flow of Zurvan, infinite time. The ripples of this hatred reached even the realm of light. Ahura Mazda, in his all-seeing wisdom, beheld the stirring of darkness and foresaw the inevitable war. He summoned the 7 Amasia Spentis, the divine spirits of creation. Vohu, Mana, good mind; Asha, Vahishta, truth; Koshathra, Varya, power; Spenta, Armati, devotion; Horvatet, wholeness; Amaritat, immortality; and Spenta, Minu, Holy Spirit. Together they beheld the shadows rise. A hush fell over the realms of light. Ahura Mazda spoke, his voice a calm flame. "From my own reflection has darkness been born. The shadow seeks to undo what light has woven. Yet even darkness shall serve the purpose of truth." And then he turned to Zurvan and declared, "Let time itself bear witness. For 9,000 years shall the darkness war against the light, and at the dawn of the 10th age, truth shall triumph." Time bowed in silence, for even infinity trembled before the weight of prophecy. The corruption of the void. Ahriman, though blinded by wrath, could hear the voice of light echoing through the fabric of creation. Each word of Ahura Mazda was a burning wound upon his pride. He screamed into the dark, and his fury became sound and storm. The void itself cracked, and from the fissures crawled creatures of nightmare, serpents of smoke, beasts of claw and whisper, spirits that fed upon fear. He sent them forth to invade the realm of light, but the radiance of Ahura Mazda repelled them. For every shadow that rose, a flame rose higher. Ahriman recoiled, hissing, and withdrew into his fortress to gather strength. He began to weave the first lie, a power so vile it could infect truth itself. He whispered it into the ear of his own creations, saying, "There is no truth, only will. There is no light, only victory. Serve me, and you shall rule when the heavens burn." The Devas screamed in exultation, and the black fire of rebellion spread. The challenge declared at last, Ahriman rose from his throne and faced the heavens. He gathered his armies, a host of shadowed forms, each thirsting for the unmaking of creation. He raised his clawed hand toward the shining realm above and roared, "Ahura Mazda, you who claim wisdom, you who steal eternity for yourself, I come for your light, and when I devour it, the void shall be mine again." His voice thundered across the fabric of existence, shaking the pillars of heaven. Ahura Mazda heard, and in his serenity smiled. He lifted the attar flame before him and answered, "Then let the choice begin. Let creation test the will of darkness, and let time judge which shall endure the light that gives, or the shadow that devours." And so it began, not a war of swords or spears, but the first conflict of thought and spirit, echoing through the hearts of gods and mortals, yet unborn. The stars trembled, the worlds unborn turned in their cradles, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness was set into motion. The balance eternal, though Ahriman had risen. Ahura Mazda knew his limits. Darkness could not destroy light, it could only oppose it. In every realm of being, both forces would exist side by side, testing all creation through choice. For even the smallest soul would one day bear within it the whisper of both, the urge to build and the desire to destroy. And in that duality, destiny would find its shape. As time flowed on, the two realms stood poised, neither yielding nor striking, until the first world was born, the battlefield where gods and mortals would decide the fate of eternity. Thus ended the Age of Awakening and began the Age of Conflict. Chapter 3: The Creation of the Material World Before Time Measured Breath or Shadow. Ahura Mazda stood within his radiant realm, the infinite light, boundless and pure. He gazed upon the churning void below, where Ahriman's corruption festered like a storm, yet unleashed. He knew that to defeat darkness, he could not strike blindly. The shadow would always return to the void, for the void was its home. Thus, he resolved to craft a realm where light and matter would unite, a world that would become the battlefield of destiny. From his thought, creation took shape. Every act of will became substance, every idea a law of existence. The birth of the first light, Ahura Mazda, spoke the first sacred word, Asha, truth. At that sound, the darkness recoiled. A current of brilliance streamed through the emptiness, and from it the first light burst forth, a pillar of flame and spirit entwined. From this light he forged the sun, a chariot of fire to burn through the abyss. Its rays became rivers of purity, flowing outward to carve the structure of heaven and earth. He then spoke again, Vohu Mana, good mind, and thought itself became a being, the first of the Amesha Spentis, who would guide creation with wisdom and love. The heavens unfolded like a scroll of light, each star a spark from the flame of Ahura Mazda's thought. The weaving of the heavens, 7 layers of existence he wove, each a veil separating light from the void, the sphere of fire, the realm of purity, the sphere of air, where movement began, the sphere of water, the mirror of reflection, the sphere of earth, the cradle of form, the sphere of plants, the breath of renewal, the sphere of animals, the pulse of life, the sphere of man, the spark of consciousness. Each layer sang with divine harmony, for Ahura Mazda's word was music, and from that sound the cosmos spun in perfect rhythm. But beneath it, from his abyss, he watched the light unfold with venomous envy. He whispered to the Devas, "Look how he fills the void with his pride. Every star he lights shall one day feed my hunger." The creation of the sacred elements, Ahura Mazda, then shaped the 7 creations, each infused with his essence, barriers and blessings to confine the shadow. The sky, vast and flawless, a dome of crystal sealing the void. The waters, flowing purity to cleanse corruption. The earth, firm and enduring, foundation of all being. The plants, gentle and renewing, ever healing the wounds of life. The cattle, symbol of strength and innocence. The fire, the eternal witness, consuming yet purifying. The first man, Gaimard, radiant and golden, the living union of spirit and matter. From Gaimard's breath came the balance of all existence. For in him burned the light of Ahura Mazda and the shadow of potential, the will to choose. The wise Lord beheld his creation and spoke, "Within this form I bind the destiny of both realms. Through him light and darkness shall contend, and through his choice all creation shall be judged." The stirring of Ahriman in the black gulf below, Ahriman's fury flared. He could not endure the brilliance above, nor the beauty of what his hatred had failed to destroy. He rose from his fortress, his wings of smoke spreading across the heavens like plague. He spat curses into the light and declared, "This world is mine to unmake. I shall turn his purity into dust, his truth into lies, his life into death." He gathered the devas, the spirits of corruption, and sent them slithering into the realms of creation. They struck the waters with venom, poisoned the plants with decay, and whispered deceit into the hearts of all living things. The earth trembled, the first corruption had begun. The shield of light Ahura Mazda did not strike in anger. He raised his hand, and from his palm burst Atar, the sacred fire, the living flame of truth. He cast it into the world, and where it burned, darkness fled. The devas shrieked and fell back into their chasms. Then Ahura Mazda spoke to the fire, "You shall be my witness in all realms. Where men gather you, I shall hear their prayers. Where you burn, my truth shall endure." The fire bowed and became the eternal guardian, a reminder that even within the material world, spirit could never be extinguished. The covenant of creation, Ahura Mazda then turned to his divine companions. He said, "The world is born, and with it the war is joined. For every shadow Ahriman casts, a light shall rise. For every lie he whispers, truth shall answer. To Vohu Mana he gave wisdom, to Asha righteousness, to Kashothra strength, to Armati compassion, to Horvatet and Amaritat wholeness and immortality. Together they formed a circle around creation, binding it with divine law, Asha, the order of being, the birth of time. When Ahura Mazda had completed his work, he turned to Zervan, the infinite time, and said, "Now let the wheel of destiny turn. Let ages rise and fall, until the final dawn when all shall be made new." Time bowed, and motion entered creation. The stars began to move, seasons to shift, life to age and renew. But time also granted Ahriman a gift, the chance to act. For within time, even darkness could dream of victory. Thus, the prophecy was sealed. 9,000 years of struggle, and in the end, the light shall triumph. The first sunrise, as Ahura Mazda withdrew into the realm of spirit, he beheld his creation from beyond the veil. The sun rose over the first mountains, and the waters shimmered like molten gold. Gaimard opened his eyes, and the first human breath joined the song of the cosmos. Ahura Mazda smiled and whispered, "Even in a world of matter, my light shall never fade, but far below, in the endless dark." Ahriman bared his fangs and whispered back, "Then let us see whose truth endures." And thus began the age of material existence, where every soul would carry within it the eternal struggle of light and darkness. Chapter 4. The War in the Skies. When the world had barely taken its first breath, the heavens trembled beneath the weight of unseen fury. The light of creation still glowed upon the waters and the mountains. Yet, from the abyss below, came the roar of the awakening dark. Ahriman rose from his fortress in Duzak, his wings unfurling like endless storms of smoke. Around him swarmed the Devos, spirits of plague, hatred, deceit, and ruin. Their howls shattered the silence between the worlds. Above, the hosts of Ahura Mazda gathered, their armor woven of dawnfire, their eyes shining like stars. Between them stretched the fabric of existence, a thin veil separating light from shadow, truth from lie, creation from unmaking. It was here that the first war of eternity began. The call to arms. Ahura Mazda stood within his radiant hall, surrounded by the Amasia Spentis, his divine emanations. He raised the flame of Atar and spoke, his voice like thunder, made gentle by wisdom. The darkness has risen. Ahriman defies the order of Asha and seeks to unmake the light. Let those who guard truth take arms, not for conquest, but to preserve the flame of creation. At his words, the heavens blazed. Vohumena drew his sword of reason. Asha Vahishta raised his shield of truth. Kashothra, Varya summoned the winds of strength. Spenta, Armadi, gentle but unyielding, whispered prayers that became barriers of light. And the twins, Horvatat and Amaritat, spread their wings of immortality, promising renewal even in destruction. The legions of light bowed before their lord, their hearts filled with resolve. The rising of the abyss in the black gulf beneath creation. Ahriman's laughter split the void like lightning made of venom. He spoke to his generals, the 7 archmans, each a twisted mirror of the holy Amasia Spentis. Indra, the demon of pride, mocker of devotion. Sorva, the corrupter of strength. Nionhithia, who turns wisdom to deceit. Toru, who devours truth. Zairi, who poisons purity, aka Mana, the evil mind. Eshma, the lord of wrath, whose spear burned black. Ahriman raised his clawed hand and proclaimed, "The light has stolen what was once void. Let us reclaim it and cast the lie of creation into nothingness." The Devas shrieked and surged upward, their wings of smoke tearing through the lower heavens. They brought storms, poison, and terror, the first shadows to stain the newborn world. The clash of creation when the two hosts met at the edge of the firmament. The heavens erupted. Fire met darkness, truth met deceit. Every spark of light became a blade, every drop of shadow a spear. The battle raged for 3,000 years of divine time. The firmament cracked, the seas boiled, mountains lifted themselves in defiance. The cries of spirits echoed through the void like thunder without end. Vohumana met, aka Mana, mind against mind. Their thoughts clashed like storms, each seeking to bend the hearts of creation to its will. Asha Vahishta stood firm before Toru, and their duel was a contest of order versus chaos. Where Asha's sword struck, the stars were born. Where Toru's claws raked, black holes tore open. Kaishathra fought Sorva in a tempest of power. The heavens blazed with wind and metal. Whole constellations were shattered and reforged in their struggle. Meanwhile, Spenta Armati stood against Indra the proud. Her humility burned brighter than his arrogance. And for every word of mockery he spat, 1,000 prayers rose to strengthen her resolve. The flame of Atar, the sacred fire, descended from Ahura Mazda's hand, weaving through the chaos like a living comet. It sought out corruption and burned it to ash. Ahriman hurled his black spear of ruin, a weapon forged from hatred itself. It struck the fire, and the explosion lit every corner of the universe. where light and shadow collided, time fractured. The first ages were born, cycles of conflict and renewal. The balance was set in motion. From this moment on, creation would know both day and night, good and evil, birth and death. The song of creation and ruin as the war raged. Ahura Mazda did not despair. He sang a song of Asha, each verse restoring what had been broken. The stars that fell became rivers of light. The shattered heavens became paths for souls yet unborn. But Ahriman answered with his own song, a dirge of corruption, turning beauty into temptation and wisdom into arrogance. Wherever one sang, the other replied, and thus began the eternal harmony of creation, the tension that would give rise to all life and all struggle, the turning of the battle. At last, Ahura Mazda called upon the great light of Vohumana, and its brilliance swept across the heavens, blinding the armies of darkness. The Devas faltered, their forms unraveled before the purity of truth. Ahriman, though wounded, refused to yield. He screamed into the void, his voice splitting the fabric of existence. You cannot destroy me, O light, for I am the shadow cast by your own perfection. Wherever you shine, I shall return. Ahura Mazda's reply was calm as eternity. Then you are bound to serve the order you despise, for without shadow none shall know light, and through choice creation shall prevail. With that, he unleashed the final radiance, and the skies were cleansed. Ahriman and his legions were hurled back into the abyss, sealed behind the veil of time for another 3,000 years. The dawn after the war, when the last echo of battle faded, the heavens lay scarred but beautiful. From the remnants of the cosmic storm, new stars were born, symbols of endurance. Ahura Mazda spoke to his companions. This war is not ended, but only paused. The shadow sleeps, yet it dreams of return. So long as creation endures, the struggle shall continue within every being, every thought, every age. The Amatia Spentus bowed, and the world entered its next age of peace. Yet far below, in the cracks of the abyss, Ahriman stirred in silence. His wounds smoked, his hate deepened. He whispered to the void, "When the light forgets its vigilance, I shall rise again, and the skies shall burn." Thus ended the first war in the skies, but the battle for the hearts of all creation had only begun. Chapter 5: The Fall of the First Man Gaimard. When the heavens quieted after the first war, golden silence descended upon the world. The air shimmered with divine warmth, and the rivers sang with voices of peace. Ahura Mazda, seeing the universe restored, spoke the word of life, and from it came Gaimard, the first man, the living light in mortal form, the birth of Gaimard, from the purest essence of earth and flame. Ahura Mazda shaped a radiant being, taller than mountains, brighter than dawn. His skin glowed like polished gold, and his breath carried the fragrance of the stars. The Amasia Spentus gathered around their creator, watching as Gaimard opened his eyes for the first time. He bowed before Ahura Mazda and said, "O Lord of Light, I am but dust, made divine by your breath. What is my purpose beneath the sky?" Ahura Mazda answered with gentle power, "You are the guardian of the world, the bridge between spirit and matter. Within you, Gaimard, all creation shall find its reflection. Guard it well, for darkness still lingers in the deep." And so the first man walked the newborn earth. Where his feet touched, flowers bloomed. Where he gazed, rivers found their course. He spoke with beasts, sang to the stars, and every living thing knew peace beneath his presence. For 1,000 years of divine time, Gaimart lived in harmony with creation, his heart pure, his thoughts clear as the light of Asha, the whisper of the abyss. But deep within the sealed void, Ahriman stirred. His wounds still smoked from the war in the skies. Hatred, blacker than night, coiled within him. He gazed upon the world of Ahura Mazda and saw Gaimart shining holy and beloved of all life. Jealousy became his weapon, deceit his voice. He summoned aka Mana, the evil mind, and whispered, "See how that mortal gleams with stolen light. Go to him, taint his thoughts. If light will not fall by battle, it shall fall by corruption." Aka Mana bowed and descended upon the world as a shadow that could not be seen. He circled Gaimart like smoke, whispering words of doubt and sorrow. "Why did Ahura Mazda make you mortal, if you are the image of perfection? Why must even your light fade, when eternity belongs to the gods?" Gaimart hesitated for the first time. He looked at his hands, once radiant, and saw the faintest trace of darkness beneath the skin. He felt the weight of time pressing upon him, and in that moment of doubt, the seed of decay was sown. The first shadow, as Akamana's whispers deepened, the world around Gaimart dimmed. The beasts grew fearful, the rivers slowed, the flowers closed their petals against an unseen sorrow. Ahura Mazda beheld this and spoke sadly, "The shadow has entered him. Yet let not despair reign, for even death shall serve my plan." The Amasia Spentus wept, but they obeyed the divine will. Meanwhile, in the caverns of darkness, Ahriman gathered his hosts once more. He forged from his own hate a creature of venom and bone, a monster born to strike at life itself. It was the demon of death, as, first of all, plagues, devourer of living essence. Ahriman sent as upon the earth, and it flew like a shadowed wind to where Gaimart rested. The death of Gaimart. Gaimart felt the chill of the demon's approach. He stood upon a mountain of light, the sky bleeding with the twilight of his fading glow, as struck him with invisible claws, not of flesh, but of despair and disease. The first man cried out, and the heavens trembled at the sound. He fell to his knees, his golden skin dimming, his breath faltering like a dying flame. In his final moments, Gaimart looked upward and prayed, "O Lord of truth, if this is my end, let my fall become the seed of life. Let my death not be in vain." Ahura Mazda's voice came to him, soft as dawn. "You shall die, Gaimart, but from your body shall come renewal. The darkness may claim your flesh, yet your spirit will rise in every living soul that follows." With that, Gaimart closed his eyes. His body turned to silver dust, falling across the earth like sacred rain. From his bones came metals, from his breath the wind, and from his heart the first seed of humankind. The promise of renewal. Where Gaimart fell, two small sprouts rose from the earth, a man and a woman, joined by light. They were Mashia and Mashiana, the first human couple, born from the union of death and creation. They looked upon the world with wonder and fear. They were frail, yet their eyes shone with Gaimart's spirit. Ahura Mazda blessed them. "You are the children of light and shadow alike. You shall know choice to follow Asha or the lie through your deeds. The balance of worlds shall be decided." The humans bowed and began their journey across the land, guided by the whispers of the Amashia and haunted by the temptations of Ahriman. Legacy of the first man. Though Gaimart had perished, his essence lived on in every living creature. The light of his soul became Fravashi, the guardian spirit that watches over all beings. Each time a man chooses good over evil, a fragment of Gayamart's purity shines anew. Each time darkness triumphs, Ahriman's whisper grows louder in the hearts of mortals. And thus, the eternal struggle, not between gods, but within every human soul, was born. The balanced, eternal Ahura Mazda gazed upon the newborn humanity and said, "Light and darkness now dwell within one being." This is the true battlefield, not in the skies, but in the heart of creation. Ahriman, from the depths, laughed softly. Then, "I have not lost, nor have you won. The war continues, in every choice, in every breath, in every age." And so began the age of mortals. The era where the divine war would no longer be fought by gods, but by the hands and hearts of men. Chapter 6. Mashia and Mashiana. The first humans, the silver dust of Gayamart, carried by divine wind, fell across the newborn earth. From that sacred soil rose to sprouts, twining together like twin flames. When the morning sun touched them, they took the form of Mashia and Mashiana, the first man and woman. Their eyes opened to a sky filled with radiant color, and their hearts beat with the rhythm of creation itself. They were pure, without fear, without memory, children of both light and shadow, the awakening of flesh and spirit. Mashia spoke first, his voice trembling like a new dawn. "Who are we, and what is this vastness around us?" Mashiana placed her hand upon the earth and whispered, "The ground is warm, and it breathes beneath us. Perhaps it is our mother." Then a voice, calm and infinite, descended from the heavens, the voice of Ahura Mazda. "You are my children, born of Gayamart's spirit and the earth's body. You carry within you both the spark of light and the seed of choice. Live, love, and guard creation. Let Asha, the truth, guide your steps." At those words, a gentle warmth filled their souls. They embraced and looked upon each other with wonder. From that sacred union began the lineage of humanity. Life in the first garden, Mashia and Mashiana dwelled in a valley where mountains circled like guardians. Crystal rivers flowed, and golden fruit hung from trees whose roots glowed with starlight. They lived without hunger, without pain. The animals walked beside them. Even the wind seemed to sing their names. When they spoke to the stars replied. When they dreamed, the Amasia Spentus came in visions, guiding them toward harmony, whispering the laws of Asha. For 100 years they lived in peace, their spirits untainted, their minds clear. And from their laughter, the world bloomed with joy. But in the deepest crevices of the underworld, Ahriman listened and seethed. The whisper of doubt, "Look at them," he hissed, his voice like poison wind. "They live as if the world were theirs, yet they are mortal, fragile, deceived by the false light." He summoned, aka Mana, the evil mind, once more, and commanded, "Go to them. Sow doubt where there is trust, pride where there is humility. Let them believe they are as great as the Creator himself." The shadow obeyed. It rose through cracks in the earth, a whisper in the wind that touched Mashia's ear one silent night. "Mashia," it murmured, "do you not feel the power within you? You name the beasts, shape the soil, and rule the day. Why kneel before a distant voice? Were you not born from Gayamart, the image of divinity itself?" Mashia hesitated. The words felt dangerous, yet sweet. He turned to Mashiana and repeated them softly. "Perhaps we are more than children of light. Perhaps we are the light itself." Mashiana frowned, her heart troubled. "Do not speak so. The voice of the Creator gave us life. If we forget him, the light may fade." But the whisper came again, colder now. "The Creator is afraid of your strength. Why else would he forbid you from knowing your full power. Thus the seed of pride was planted, and the first humans began to drift from Asha. The turning away days passed. Masha grew restless, his heart clouded by strange dreams. He spoke to Mashiana of building their own world, a place ruled by their will, not divine command. They ceased to hear the songs of the Amasha Spentus. The rivers no longer shimmered with light, and the animals fled their presence. Ahura Mazda watched in silence. He did not strike them down, for he had given them free will, and even divine light must honor choice. Finally, when the weight of their pride grew too heavy, Mashiach cried out to the heavens, "If we are your image, why must we bow? Why must we live in the shadow of your name?" Then the earth trembled softly, sorrowfully. The sky dimmed, and Ahriman's laughter echoed like thunder. The fall of innocence, aka manna, appeared before them, no longer as a whisper, but as a form of dazzling beauty. He spoke with a voice that shimmered like honeyed gold. "Take my hand, and I shall show you freedom. You shall walk among stars, masters of creation itself." Mashiach reached out, but Mashiana, trembling, pulled him back. "No, that light is false. I see darkness within it." In fury, aka manna, revealed his true form, a being of smoke and ash, eyes burning with endless hatred. He struck them both with fear and despair, and for the first time, humans wept. Tears fell upon the earth, and where they landed, weeds grew in place of flowers. Their innocence was gone. The redemption yet, as they knelt, trembling and lost, a soft light broke through the storm. It was the radiance of Spenta Armati, the Amasia Spenta of devotion and love. She touched their foreheads and said, "You have fallen, but not beyond hope. For in every heart that errs, the spark of truth still burns." Mashiach and Mashiana wept again, but these tears were pure, cleansing their souls of Ahriman's poison. They bowed to the heavens and prayed, "O Lord of light, we were blind and proud. Teach us to walk again in truth." Ahura Mazda's voice returned, "Rise, my children. You have tasted the darkness, and through it learned the value of the light. From this day forth, your kind shall wander, strive, and choose. And in every choice lies your destiny, the legacy of humanity." Mashiach and Mashiana left the sacred valley and journeyed across the wide earth. They bore children, 10 pairs, who spread across the mountains and seas. And so began the generations of humankind, each carrying the eternal duality, the whisper of Ahriman and the song of Ahura Mazda. Some would build, others destroy. Some would seek truth, others power. But in every soul, the war of light and darkness continued, the echo of the first fall, the eternal choice. In the divine realm, Ahura Mazda spoke to his Amasia Spentus. "The light and shadow now dwell in mortal hearts. Through their deeds shall the fate of creation be decided." And in the abyss, Ahriman grinned. "Then let us see how your fragile creatures fare when faced with desire, fear, and time." Thus began the age of humans, where every act of kindness brightened the stars, and every cruelty dimmed the heavens. And so, the story of light and darkness was no longer that of gods, but of men. Chapter 7. The Rise of the False Prophets. Centuries passed since the dawn of humankind. The children of Mashiach and Mashiana had spread across mountains and deserts, raising cities of stone and temples of fire. They remembered the words of Ahura Mazda, but memory, like fire, fades when not tended. In the age when men first named the stars, darkness crept again into their hearts. the age of silence. For 1,000 years, the world prospered. Humans sang hymns to the light, kept sacred fires burning, and honored the laws of Asha. The Amasha Spentus walked unseen among them, blessing crops and rivers, whispering wisdom to those who listened. But peace bred pride. The people began to believe they no longer needed divine guidance. They built monuments to themselves, calling their strength eternal. The flame of faith dimmed, the sacred fires burned low, and from that faint glow, Ahriman saw his chance. The seeds of deceit in the caverns of darkness. Ahriman gathered his legions, devas born from hatred and lies. He spoke in a voice that made the abyss tremble. The children of light have grown arrogant. They call themselves masters of earth. Let us grant them prophets, not of truth, but of shadows, disguised as revelation. The devas shrieked in joy. They ascended through cracks in the world, wearing the forms of men. The coming of the first false prophet in a golden city by the sea, a man named Zoroastrian, claimed that the light itself had chosen him. He stood before the people, his eyes glowing with a false radiance, and cried, "Behold, the truth is not in the heavens, but within your will. You need no God, no rule, no restraint. You are the divine flame, free to burn as you please." The crowds cheered. Zoroastrian performed miracles of illusion, turning sand to gold, calling fire from the air. He built a temple to himself, and thousands knelt before him. But as the years passed, the land around his temple grew barren. The rivers dried, and the sky wept ash. Still, the people worshipped him, for his words fed their pride, and his lies soothed their fears. The whispering plague soon. Other prophets arose across the earth, each promising liberation, pleasure, or immortality. Some worshipped the flame of greed, others the shadow of death itself. Their voices spread like wildfire, carried by desire, ambition, and despair. Cities fought against cities, nations against nations, each claiming to follow the true light. The sacred flame of Asha was nearly forgotten. In its place, false fires burned bright but hollow, devouring all that lived. And in the heart of the abyss, Ahriman smiled. The silent heavens, the Amasya Spentus wept, but Ahura Mazda forbade them from intervening. He said, "Let them choose, for only through the fire of deception shall the truth of light be known." Thus, the world fell into silence. The temples of truth crumbled, and the songs of creation faded from memory. For 7 generations, men forgot the name of their maker. They worshipped wealth, power, and death, and called it wisdom. The last flame, yet not all hearts were lost. In the mountain valleys of the east, a small brotherhood of keepers guarded the sacred fire. They called themselves the children of Asha. They passed down the memory of Gayamart, the fall of Mashia and Mashiana, and the eternal war between light and darkness. By night, they whispered prayers to the stars. By day, they taught the innocent to resist the lie. Their leader was a humble woman named Vandara, whose eyes shone with quiet strength. She spoke to her people. The world burns with false light, but even a single pure flame can pierce an age of darkness. And the fire they kept never went out, not once, not ever. The first cleansing, when the corruption reached its peak, Ahura Mazda looked upon the earth and wept. He called to Tishtria, the star of rain, and said, "Wash the world, that it may remember purity once more." Tishtria obeyed. He rose into the sky as a stallion of light, galloping through the heavens. Thunder roared, and rain fell for 40 nights and 40 days. The false temples collapsed. their golden idols shattered. The cities of deceit sank beneath the flood, and only the high places remained, where the children of Asha had hidden the sacred flame. When the storm ceased, a new dawn broke upon the world. Clean air, new rivers, fertile soil, and silence. Humanity was reborn. The return of light. From the mountains, Vandara and her kin descended. They rekindled the sacred fires and built a new temple, not of gold, but of humble stone and truth. Ahura Mazda spoke through the wind. The darkness shall return again, for such is the nature of choice. But as long as one heart keeps the flame of Asha, the world shall never be lost. The people wept with gratitude. They vowed to teach their children not merely to worship light, but to recognize truth amidst deception. And thus began the second age of the world, the age of renewal, the eternal warning. But deep in the abyss, Ahriman still stirred. He whispered into the void, "Let them rebuild. Let them believe they are safe, for I am patient, and man's pride will always open the door for me again." The stars flickered as if shivering at his voice, and the heavens, though radiant, knew the truth. The war of light and darkness was far from over. Chapter 8. The Covenant of Fire. The rain had ceased. The air smelled of new earth and forgiveness. From the valleys that once drowned in shadow, green shoots broke through the soil, life reborn from the tears of the gods. The children of Asha descended from the mountains, their torches flickering in the dawn mist. Among them walked Vandara, the keeper of the last flame, the light that had survived the flood. The pilgrimage of light. For 40 days they wandered across the cleansed world. They found no cities, no kings, no temples, only silence and the echoes of lost ages. At last they came upon a wide plain where the air shimmered with unseen warmth. There Vandara knelt and placed her torch upon a stone altar. The flame did not consume the wood. Instead, it burned with steady brilliance, gold at its core, silver at its edge. The people bowed low. They felt a presence, vast yet gentle, as though the breath of the cosmos itself had come to rest among them. Then the voice of Ahura Mazda spoke. "Children of the new dawn, you have carried my light through the storm. From this moment, you shall be the keepers of the flame eternal. Wherever this fire burns, in truth, their darkness shall not prevail." The covenant Vandara lifted her eyes to the heavens and answered, "O Lord of infinite light, we are but dust and memory, yet within us burns your spark. Teach us to guard it, not with pride, but with purpose." Ahura Mazda replied, "Then let there be a covenant between heaven and earth. You shall keep this fire pure, never to be stained by deceit, greed, or blood. Feed it only with clean hands and honest hearts. As long as it endures, so too shall my guidance dwell among men." And thus the covenant of fire was born. It was not written in stone, nor carved by mortal tools, but etched into the soul of humankind. The fire upon the altar flared high, casting its light across the plain. In that glow, every heart knew they had been chosen not for power, but for remembrance. The founding of the first temple, under Vandara's guidance, the people built a sanctuary of stone. Its walls were unadorned, for beauty was not in gold, but in devotion. At its center burned the sacred fire, guarded day and night by the keepers of Asha. They named the place Verena, the city of the flame. From across the reborn world, wanderers came, the lost, the weary, the repentant. They brought offerings of grain and song, and the keepers taught them, "This fire is not a god, but the mirror of his truth. To see it is to remember the light within oneself. Thus began the first faith, the worship of light as the bridge to the divine. Vandara's vision. One night, Vandara stood alone before the sacred flame. The air shimmered, and a figure emerged within the fire, a being of radiant calm, one of the Amasia, Spentis, Vohu Mana, the spirit of good mind. He spoke to her gently. Vandara, your faith has rekindled the bond between God and man. Yet know this, the covenant is not a shield, but a trial. Each generation must choose to keep the flame alive, or let it fade into smoke. Vandara bowed her head. Then let my life be the first vow, and my death the last test. Vohu Mana smiled, and the fire brightened, reflecting her heart like a mirror of gold. The passing of the keeper years passed. The city of the flame grew, its people living in harmony and justice. Children learned to greet the sunrise with open palms, to speak the truth even in silence. When Vandara's final day came, she gathered her people before the altar. I am not your guide, she said. The flame is guarded, not as treasure, but as remembrance of who you are. As she breathed her last, a wind rose from the east. The flame flared once more, and within its light, her form dissolved into 1,000 motes of gold. Her spirit became the eternal watcher, guardian of every sacred fire to come. The legacy of the covenant centuries rolled by. From Verena, the faith spread across mountains and seas. Temples were raised where the sun shone brightest, each one bearing a flame born from Vandara's fire. Priests in white robes tended the altars, chanting hymns to Asha, truth, and light. They taught that every human choice either fed the flame or dimmed it, and so the covenant of fire became the soul of the world's new age, a beacon against the whisper of Ahriman. The balance restored in the celestial realm, Ahura Mazda watched, and for the first time since Gaiamart's fall, he smiled. They have learned to see without sight, to hear without command. For this is the true light, not one given, but one chosen. But even as the heavens rejoiced, in the abyss below, Ahriman stirred once more. So they remember now, he hissed. Then I shall remind them of fear. And far in the eastern deserts, a black wind began to rise, a sign that the next shadow was already on its way. Chapter 9. The Desert of Shadows. The covenant of fire had endured for centuries. The sacred flames of Vandara burned bright across mountains and plains, and the people lived in the wisdom of Asha, truth, order, and light. But all light, if left unguarded, casts a shadow. The whisper beneath the sand, in the farthest reaches of the eastern world, lay a wasteland called Dash Tedruj, the desert of deceit. No traveler crossed it, for the wind there sang, with a strange voice, a voice that spoke to fear and hunger. One night, beneath a moonless sky, the sand began to stir. A black wind rose, carrying whispers that slithered like serpents through the dunes. From beneath the earth, a figure emerged, cloaked in night, crowned with flame. It was Ahriman, reborn from the ashes of hatred. He had slept in the abyss since his fall, but envy had kept him dreaming. Now he sought not to destroy the light, but to corrupt it from within. They have learned to worship, he said. Then I shall teach them to worship me. The rise of Zarvan in the kingdom of Verena, where the covenant of fire was strongest. A young prince named Zarvan dreamed of greatness. He was bold, clever, and proud, beloved by his people, but haunted by a hunger for immortality. One night, as he wandered beyond the city walls, a voice whispered from the desert, Zarvan, heir of fire, Would you hold the sun itself in your hand? He turned, but saw no one. Only the dunes, shifting, glowing faintly in the starlight. Who speaks? He demanded. One who can give you eternity, the voice replied. One who can make your name echo beyond the gods. And from the shadow, Ahriman appeared, in the form of a radiant man, his eyes like obsidian stars. Serve me, he said softly, and I shall make you the emperor of all light. Zarvan's heart faltered, not in fear, but in awe. He bowed. That night, the covenant was betrayed. The dimming flame the next morning. The sacred fire in the temple of Verena flickered weakly. The keepers of Asha knelt in horror. For the first time in living memory, the eternal flame trembled. Vandara's blessing fades, they whispered. But the high priest Orvan knew what had happened. He had seen the prince speaking to the wind. He had felt the shadow crawling under the stone. The desert stirs, Orvan said grimly, and with it, the ancient darkness. The kingdom of the black sun Zarvan, crowned by deceit, led his armies eastward. Under Ahriman's invisible hand, he conquered city after city, declaring himself the bearer of the new light. But his light was false, a cold fire that burned without warmth, a flame that devoured instead of giving life. Temples that once glowed with the golden flame now burned with blue fire, the fire of pride. Those who defied him were cast into the desert, where their souls turned to dust. And high above his obsidian throne, a black sun rose, its light swallowing the stars. The prophecy of the flame deep within the mountains. The last true flame of Vandara still burned, guarded by the order of the dawn. There, the priest Orvan prayed for deliverance. In his dreams, Vandara appeared, her form woven of gold and ash. Do not despair, she said, for no darkness is eternal. From the blood of the faithful, the flame shall be reborn. She gave him a vision of a child born under the twin stars, carrying the light of both sun and moon. Seek the child of balance, she whispered. Through him, Asha will rise again. When Orvan awoke, the flame before him blazed higher than ever. He knew then that the war between light and darkness was far from over. The march of shadows, Zarvan's empire, spread like a storm. Wherever his banners flew, the air grew heavy and the stars dimmed. But not all bent the knee. From the mountain sanctuaries, the faithful gathered, warriors, healers, and wanderers who still believed in the covenant. They took up the name, the Children of Dawn, vowing to restore the true light. And so began the second war of the flames, a war not only for kingdoms, but for the soul of the world itself. The balance falters. Ahura Mazda looked upon the earth and wept. My children have turned my fire into weapon, he said. They have made faith into conquest. And in the depths, Ahriman laughed. See, Father of Light, they need no darkness. They create their own. The world in eclipse, the black sun reached its zenith. Night swallowed day. Rivers turned to dust. Even the heavens grew silent. But amid the ruin, a single cry echoed, the cry of a newborn child, wrapped in silver light beneath twin stars. Far away, in the temple of the dawn, Orvan fell to his knees and whispered, the prophecy begins. Chapter 10. The child of balance. The night was endless. The stars, swallowed by the black sun, no longer sang. But deep within the valley of silence, a woman knelt beside a dying fire. Her name was Sariha, a priestess of the old flame, the last of Vandara's bloodline. In her arms, a newborn stirred, glowing faintly beneath the veil of ash. When he opened his eyes, one shone gold, the other silver. A breath of wind passed through the valley, and for a heartbeat, the stars flickered once more. The prophecy had come to life. The signs of the twin stars, high above, in the celestial realm, Ahura Mazda looked upon the infant with wonder. "So the balance is born," he murmured. "Not of light alone, nor darkness, but of both. The bridge that even I could not build." And in the abyss, Ahriman stirred. "My essence runs in his veins," he hissed. "He is mine as much as yours, brother of light." Thus the heavens and the void watched in uneasy silence as the fate of all creation lay in the hands of a child. The refuge in the mountains, Sariha, fled into the northern mountains, guided by dreams of firebirds and golden serpents. There she found shelter among the Order of the Dawn, who still guarded the last pure flame. The high priest Orvan beheld the child and wept. "He bears the mark of both realms," Orvan whispered. "He is the child of balance, the fulcrum of fate." They named him Ilyon, meaning the bridge between worlds. As the boy grew, strange signs followed him. Where he laughed, the snow melted. Where he wept, shadows bent away. Animals gathered around him in silent reverence, and even the sacred fire bowed low when he entered. Yet within his eyes, two lights warred constantly, gold and silver, day and night. The test of the flame on his 12th year, Ilyon was brought before the eternal fire. It roared higher than it had in generations, as though recognizing its kin. Orvan spoke. "You are of both light and shadow. The flame will judge which truth you serve." He stepped forward, his hands trembling as he touched the fire. The priests gasped. The flames turned half gold, half black. Neither consumed him. Instead, they spiraled around his body, forming a crown of twin light. A voice echoed from within the blaze, the same voice that once spoke to Vandara. "He shall walk between the worlds. Through his choice, the age shall end." From that day, Ilyon became the keeper of the sacred flame, but also its question. The whisper returns. As years passed, Ilyon's power grew, yet so did the whisper within him. At night, when the world slept, a shadow spoke from the corners of his dreams. Why serve a god who let the world burn? Why bear the pain of both sides when you could rule them all? It was the voice of Ahriman, soft and persuasive. "You are my blood too, Ilyon. The fire obeys you because it remembers me." Ilyon awoke in sweat, torn between reverence and rage. He gazed into the fire and whispered, "If I am made of both, can I ever be whole?" The flame answered only with silence. The prophecy of the eclipse. One night, Orvan gathered the elders. "The black sun rises once more," he warned. "Zarvan's descendants march beneath banners of false flame. The world sinks again into shadow. Only the child of balance can end the cycle." But Sariha, now old and frail, shook her head. "He must not be forced into war," she said. "He must choose his path, or the balance will break. For even prophecy cannot bind free will." The dream of two thrones that night. Ilyon dreamed of two thrones, one of blazing gold, one of cold obsidian. Between them stretched a bridge of flame, cracking under his weight. On the golden throne sat Ahura Mazda, eyes filled with sorrow. On the black throne, Ahriman, smiling like a serpent. "Choose," they said together, "for in your choice lies the fate of all." Ilyon cried out, "I will serve neither. I will walk my own path to heal what both of you have broken." The bridge shattered. He fell into darkness. And when he awoke, The fire within him blazed brighter than ever. The calling as dawn broke, Ilyon climbed to the highest peak of the mountain. The horizon burned crimson, a warning of war. He raised his hands, and the air shimmered with twin light. The priests gathered below, awestruck. "Where will you go?" Orvan asked. "To the desert," Ilyon replied, "to face the shadow of my blood and end what began in darkness." He turned, and for a moment the wind carried Vandara's voice. "Go, child of both suns. Remember, balance is not found, it is made." The journey begins. Ilyon descended the mountain, his cloak glowing faintly like dawn breaking through night. Behind him, the priests bowed, knowing the prophecy was in motion. Before him stretched the endless dunes of Dasht-Tidruj, where shadows whispered and the black sun waited. The child of balance walked into the desert, his light casting twin shadows upon the sand, one gold, one silver, as the war of the gods prepared to begin anew. Chapter 11. The War of the Two Flames. The desert trembled. Wind howled like 1,000 dying prayers. From horizon to horizon, black sand lifted into the sky, forming a storm that swallowed the sun. And through it walked Ilyon, the child of balance, his eyes twin stars, his heart a forge of silence. The voice of the world whispered through the dunes, "The time has come. Light and darkness shall burn together." The empire of the false flame at the heart of Dasht-Tidruj, the city of Nergal, rose, a fortress built of black stone and fire. Its towers burned with azure light, the mark of Ahriman's dominion. Upon its highest spire sat the Black Throne, where Emperor Kereth, last heir of Zarvan's cursed line, watched the storm with cold pride. Kereth's crown shimmered like molten night. His armies, the Legion of Shadows, stood in silence, their armor etched with flames that devoured rather than illuminated. But behind Kereth's eyes, a deeper power watched Ahriman himself, wearing mortal flesh as a mask. "He comes." The god of deceit murmured. The bridge, the balance, the betrayer of both, the march of the dawn from the northern mountains. The children of dawn descended, priests, warriors, and wanderers, bearing banners woven with gold and silver thread. At their head rode Ilyon, his sword, Arvitar, the flame unbound, forged from the same fire that once blessed Vandara. When the two armies met upon the plain of Zareth, the sky split with thunder. Day and night collided, and the heavens themselves trembled. "Today," Ilyon said, "we do not fight to destroy darkness, we fight to end its need to exist." His voice carried across the battlefield like the call of creation itself. The clash of faith, the armies charged. Blades met with the roar of the storm. Every strike birthed sparks that turned into stars, then vanished into the void. The faithful fought with hymns upon their lips, their weapons blazing in golden fire. The Legion of Shadows answered with silence, their blades burning with blue hate. For every man who fell, a flame died, but another ignited in vengeance. Above it all, Kereth descended from his throne, his armor glowing like obsidian glass. "You cannot end what you are," he said to Ilyon, his voice both mortal and divine. "You are my reflection, child of both suns." The duel of the two flames, the battlefield stilled as they faced each other. The storm paused, as though creation itself waited to see which truth would survive. Ilyon raised Arvitar. Its edge shimmered with twin fire. Kereth drew his blade of pure darkness, Namtar, the endless night. When their swords met, the world split open. A sea of fire erupted between heaven and earth. Each blow tore memory from the stars. Each parry sent echoes through eternity. Ilyon's light burned with mercy. Kereth's darkness struck with despair. But both flames were equal in power, for both were born from the same source. The revelation as the battle raged, Ahriman's voice thundered within Kereth's body. You cannot kill me, boy. I am the shadow of every thought, the hunger beneath every prayer. Even your light gives me shape. Ilyon's blade faltered. For a moment, doubt clouded his heart. Then, from the dust and chaos, a whisper came, soft, radiant, familiar. Balance is not destruction, my child. It is understanding. It was Vandara's voice, carried by the eternal flame. Ilyon looked into Kereth's eyes and saw not a god, but a soul, broken and lost. He lowered his sword. Then I will not destroy you, he said. I will free you. The fusion of flames. Ilyon pressed his hand to Kereth's chest. The twin lights within him, gold and silver, merged into one. The fire and the shadow intertwined, not in conflict, but in union. Ahriman screamed as the light of truth pierced the illusion of eternity. You cannot merge what was meant to be divided. But Ilyon's voice rose like thunder. Then let division die. With a final surge, he drew both flames into himself, the light of Ahura Mazda, the shadow of Ahriman. And for a moment, the world was still. The end of the war, when the storm cleared, the battlefield lay silent. The sky glowed with dawn's first light, and the desert bloomed with flowers of fire. Kereth's body was gone. Only his crown remained, cracked yet radiant. Ilyon stood at the center of the plain, his form flickering between light and shadow. Orvan approached, kneeling. Is it over? Ilyon smiled faintly. No, the war was never between gods. It was within us, and so it will always be. He raised his hand, and from his heart, two flames emerged, one golden, one silver, ascending into the sky and joining as one. Thus, the two flames became one, and the world entered the age of balance. Chapter 12. The dawn beyond time. The world was quiet. No wind stirred, no wave sang. The black sun had set, and in its place rose a sky neither of day nor night, but both. In the stillness stood Ilyon, his body woven of light and shadow, his soul suspended between breath and eternity. The battlefield of Zareth lay below him, transformed the dunes, now rivers of molten gold. The air filled with the scent of new beginnings. From the heavens came a whisper, not one voice, but two, speaking as one. It is done. The vision of the two gods above him, Ahura Mazda, appeared radiant and vast, his eyes the dawn. Opposite him, Ahriman emerged, dark and fathomless, his gaze the endless night. For the first time since the birth of creation, they stood face to face, not as enemies, but as halves of the same whole. He has united what we divided, said Ahura Mazda. He has given form to what we denied. Ahriman lowered his head, his shadow trembling with something like sorrow. And so, I am undone, he said. Yet in my undoing, I am at peace. They turned their gaze to Ilyon, child of both suns, said the light. You have done what no god could. You have ended me, said the darkness. And in ending me, set me free, the choice beyond divinity. Ilyon bowed before them. There was never need for gods to fight, he said, only for creation to understand itself. Light cannot exist without shadow, nor can shadow live without light. Ahura Mazda extended his hand. Come, my son, return to the heavens. Rule beside me as the eternal flame of balance. But Ilyon looked down to the rivers the mountains, the people rising from ruin, and shook his head. No, the world needs not rulers, but reminders. The balance must live among men, not above them. The transformation, he raised his arms to the sky. The golden and silver flames that once crowned him rose from his heart, splitting into 1,000 shards of light. They scattered across the world, into the hearths of homes, the souls of children, the eyes of dreamers. Every spark carried his essence, a fragment of unity, a whisper of truth. As long as they remember, Ilyon said, I will not fade. His form began to dissolve, not in death, but in transcendence. He became the breath between dawn and dusk, the pulse between thought and silence. And as he vanished, the heavens bloomed with new constellations, each one a memory of his light. The eternal watchers, Ahura, Mazda, and Ahriman, watched in awe. For the first time, they understood that divinity was not supremacy, but surrender. He has surpassed us, said the light. He has completed us, whispered the shadow. They faded together, their forms blending into the fabric of creation. And in their union, a new star ignited, neither black nor white, but the color of dawn, the age of balance. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, faiths changed names, but not essence. In temples, fires burned with twin hues, gold and silver, symbolizing the two flames made one. Children told tales of Ilyon, the boy who bridged heaven and earth. Some called him a prophet, others a myth. But in every heart that sought truth, a spark of his flame still lived. Priests taught that the war of gods was never to destroy evil, but to teach us that both light and shadow dwell within every soul. And only in embracing both do we become whole. Thus dawned the age of balance, an era where wisdom replaced conquest, and silence became the voice of the divine. The dawn beyond time in a place beyond time and sky, where the stars are yet unborn, a figure of light and shadow walks eternally, not as God, not as man, but as the eternal equilibrium. He watches the cosmos bloom and fade, birth and death, as one continuous breath. And when a world strays too far into darkness, or burns too fiercely with light, a whisper echoes from the void. Remember the balance, then dawn returns, gentle, infinite, forever reborn.